project, we're going to create a NLP model that is going to predict the correct spellings for incorrect words that might have been typed by the user. Okay, and here we're going to, yeah, let's just start with the contents of the project, right? So now I've divided how I would give an overview of this project into introduction. Then I would talk about how we are going to build the model. And lastly, what I'm going to talk about is the Django project and how would I host my Django application onto Azure. Right. Now, moving forward. So this is the introduction. So in this project, we will be building a NLP model that is trained on text data that the correct spellings for incorrect spelled words. Right. Let's say that I wanted to say back. So the spelling would be BACK, but I incorrectly wrote it as BACC. So it would give me the suggestion that you might want to use the word back with BACK rather than BACC. Right. So this is what we are trying to build. So now the most important part of our project is when we create functions that handle different combinations of characters to see if they form a word that is in our vocabulary. So we will define a vocabulary by ourselves and we will go through the vocabulary to see if the word we have predicted is actually a word or not. So there will be four functions that we will create that will handle string manipulation for creating new words which can be the correct spelled word. We will then prepare a very own website using the Django framework and then host it on Azure. Right. So in the next part is where we are building the model. So as I told you, we will create four functions. So the first function is going to be the delete later, where when a word is given, right, it returns all the possible strings that we can have if we remove one character from that string. Like I said from the previous example, we have back, right? BACC. So it would give me all possible strings like BSC, BCC, ACC, right? So it has removed one character from the string. Then we have the switch letter, which is when given a word, it returns all the possible strings that have two adjacent letters switched. Right. So basically what we mean is that, let's say, again taking the same example, it would switch two letters. So it would switch BA in the BACC. So you would get ABCC. So all possible combinations of switching of two adjacent letters will happen in this function. Now there are two more functions, but we would go and cover them in later videos because they are pretty much more complex than these functions and their functionalities also create some exception cases too, right? Lastly, using these functions, we will implement an edit function that would be the crust of our model, and then we are going to use that in our prediction. Okay. Now creating the Django project, right? Creating the Django project, and Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python, and it includes advanced functionalities like authentication support, management and admin panels, contact forms, file upload support, and more. So the contact forms and comment boxes are basically the data you get from your front end, right? And maybe parsed or maybe manipulated in the back end so that we get results. In other words, if you were to create a website or if you were creating a website from scratch, you would need to develop these components by yourself. But with the Django framework, instead, these components are already built. You just need to configure them properly to match the site. What happens is that all of these aforementioned functionalities are already provided by Django through the means of classes or functions. So you just need to call them. You just need to make the options of them, and then you can use these functionalities as you want in your website. Lastly, so this is the last stage or step in the process of building the project where we host the newly made website using the Django platform. Yeah, this is a little misleading. We made the website using the Django platform, but we're going to host it on Azure, right? We will be using the Linux VM for hosting the website and understand how exactly the virtual server and the cloud system work. This completed, we would be able to access our website and run the model from anywhere across the internet. So now moving forward, we will go to the first part where we develop our model and see if it is working properly or not. Project where we're going to develop our model, right? So the first code block that you can see is to mount your drive onto your Google Collaboratory. So what happens here is that you don't exactly have an access to your drive. So to get an access so that your collaboratory can access all the files in your Google Drive, you need to run this code block where I'm importing the drive function from google.collab and giving it a path of which directory I want to access, right, through my collaboratory. Now, you can see some of the, I would say, some of the packages that we have with us right now, right? So let me just go through each of them briefly so that you understand why exactly are we using them, right? So even down, if we move down, right, there are. Okay, so okay, so only uh, one another package was imported, which was pickle. So I will talk about that later. But for this project, we are going to use these libraries, right, which you can see here. So the Ray library is basically handling regex expressions, right? And they are used for string manipulations and where we can handle string deletions, part of string deletion, part of string substitution, stuff like that, right? Then we have collections. Now, collections is actually a module which provides different types of containers in Python, right? And you can see that I've imported counter, which is an example of a container. So a container is basically an object that is used to store different objects and provide a way to access the contained objects, which basically means that if I were to want to have a container where I can save a list, where I can also save a tuple simultaneously, where I can also save a set simultaneously, right? So if you want to save different kinds of objects in one container, you would go for collections and see which of the uh, collections object can you use for that, right? So for example, we have counters, we have ordered dictionary, we have chain map, right? So we can see through each and every container that they provide and see which of them fits the criteria for us. Then we have the NLTK library, right? So NLTK is a standard Python library that provides a set of diverse algorithms for NLP. It is one of the most used libraries for NLP and computational linguistics. Now we know that real world data is unstructured, is inconsistent. You have to work a lot so that you can enrich the data first and remove the unwanted parts from it so that later down the line you can pre-process it and then feed into your model. So for all of that, to uh, to clean the data, to remove the unwanted part, to pre-process the data, right, the enriched data. So NLTK has a lot of sub packages. NLTK has a lot of functions in it, which provides you different functionalities to help you with the aforementioned functions. Okay, so from them we are using the WordNet to get the WordNet lemmatizer. I would talk about what lemmatization is later, right? So for now, you have to just see that I'm using a function for lemmatization from NLTK. I'm also calling stop words from NLTK, right? So now stop words are basically so stop words are those words which might be needed to write a sentence, but they do not provide much information to the model when fed, right? For example, let's say that today is very cold. So is a stop word, because while we do require is in our sentence, when we feed that into the model, the word is does not really uh, give much information about the sentence, because the words like today, very, hot, right, stuff like that gives you information about the sentence, about what it is trying to convey, right? Then we're just calling our data set. Now, this is why we had to mount our, uh, I would say, mount our drive onto the Google Collaboratory, because now I can access any subdirectory or file present in my drive. So I've just called the CSV file which has the data. Now I've commented this out, but you need to run this code block too, so that you download the stop words and WordNet. So these are under NLTK and they would be downloaded in pretty less time. Then you call out the stop words and put them in a set, right, so that they are unique. And the you can even see here that stopword dot words, and I'm giving the parameter as English. So NLTK has support for different kinds of languages, and it is not just based to English or the most popular ones, right? So this is why NLTK is pretty much like has a monopoly when it comes to text processing and text analysis. So I've also created a custom list which I thought should be there, right? Again, these are numbers written as strings, so I thought that this would also help us in removing some of the or downsizing my vocabulary a little. Then what I've done is I've taken the union for it and converted that to a list, so that I'm easily able to use my list and manipulate it later. Right. So let's now talk about lemmatization and another topic, that is word tokenization. Right. So the process of breaking down the text and data into individual tokens, which could be words or characters, is known as tokenization. It is the foremost step in text analysis, and when text data is split into individual words, we call it as word tokenization. So usually it is done through word tokenize function or word lemmatize functions. But when we call the word lemmatize function, so in it processes the data, starts the tokenization process, but also starts another process which is lemmatization. So lemmatization is the process of grouping together inflected forms of a word so they can be analyzed as a single item. So basically, when we talk about the English language, we have a past tense, we have a present tense, we have a future tense, then there's past perfect, future, present perfect, and stuff like that, right? So one word can have different forms, but they do mean the same thing. So lemmatization is the process of converting the different forms into one specific form in my text data. Right. So that is that. And yeah, here you can see that I've created a pre-process function, which pretty much is self-explanatory what exactly it is doing. So the thing is that we are using the apply function on my data frame, and I'm processing the text data. And what exactly I'm processing, or what exactly are the steps in my processing, is that first thing we'll lowercase the text data, right? Because the thing is, the model is not able to understand that is in caps and is in small are the same thing. So it understands that they are two different things, right? So again, this is not. So we have to lowercase everything. Then I'm removing tags. When we talk about tags, these are like I would say like the HTML tags or the BR tags in my HTML, HTML code. It can be also some of the tags where you link, where you use a word and connect it to a link, so that when you click on that, you are redirected to a new page. So all kinds of tags are removed here so that we only get the word. Then we remove special characters and digits, right? So that I only my data set only contains alpha, I would say alphabets. Basically, they would contain words which are made up of alphabets only. So all strings would have alphabets only. Now, it can mean that there can be words which have no meaning. Like if I have written WMM, does that mean anything? No, that's not a word. But they won't be, I would say, filtered from here, right? So the next thing is to split. Now, as I talked about tokenization, the process of word tokenization was that we split the data into individual words. So the split function works on a string where it takes input as string and the output is a list of words inside that string. So basically, if I were to give you an example, right? Let's say the string is it is okay. All all of them were in lowercase, so it is very cold today, right? So after split, I would get it is very cold today. So this is what I would get right from my text dot split here. Then I'm using list comprehension to just see if my list of words have any stop words or not. If it has, then just remove that from the list and send back the list to the text variable. Then I'm looking for a list which have more than 3 words. So basically what is happening through here to here is that first I'm converting my strings into a list of words, then I'm looking for only those data, I would say only for those data where the sentence length is more than 3 words, because sentence length of 3 words or smaller is too small, right? Even three is small, but I have taken it so that my data set is large and my model is able to train better. But you can remove this uh, from 3 to, let's say, 10, 20, whatever you want, right? And then the last process is lemmatization. So I'm calling the class here, right? I'm creating an object here. Then through lemmatize function, I'm lemmatizing each and every word. And lastly, I'm just joining the uh, individual words back so that it becomes a sentence again and returning that sentence. So this is what is happening in my preprocess function. Using the apply function, I'm using the preprocess function on each and every row. So apply basically takes in a parameter of a function name and it applies the function to each and every row of the data frame. Now you can see that I've only taken the first 3000 data points from my data set, because if okay, I haven't shown here, but this data set contains more than 7,000 data points. I'm only using nearly half of it, right? So yeah, so what I've done is I've now taken the data, I've taken the series here since it's only containing one row. I've taken the series here and converted it into a list. You can even see here, this is the list. Okay, yeah, somewhere around here, yeah, you can see that this is the first element of my list, this is the second element of my list, right? But you can see that this is quite large data set, right? This is not a small data set. Then what I'm doing is I'm also joining each and every sentence to form a very big data. Okay, so you can see that uh, yeah, this is a very one big data set. I can't tell you where the first one is ending and the second element is starting. But yeah, that is what I'm doing again through the join function, right? So next is okay. So there were some other things that I didn't remove or then filter out. So for that, I created the miscellaneous function, and it had another function call which was process tweets. So it was removing HTTPS or hashtags if there were any, right? So that was for that. Now you can see here, what I've got is each and every word from my very big data set here, right? So that is actually inside the words variable. And if I'm if I'm putting that into a set, so I'm getting the unique words from my data set, which I have called as vocab here. So you can see that there are 90,699 unique words in the vocabulary. And if you would see the length of words, it would range a lot. Like it would go around a million or so, I think. But the thing is, the important part is to understand what your vocabulary is from the data set, right? Okay, yeah. Here you can see it is going into 5 million, right? And from that 5 million words, we have 90,699 unique words, which is what we are calling our vocabulary, right? So this is, yeah. Okay, so the next thing is we are creating a dictionary where we are specifying each word as our key and the number of time it has occurred in the very big data set which we have created here, right? So I get a dictionary which has unique words as my keys and the number of time each word has occurred as my value. So if I run this get count uh, function, you can see that I've created a dictionary. I've used the counter function, a container, and given the input as the words that I had. Okay, uh, the words here, right? So you can see that in my dictionary, if the key is infinite, right, the word is infinite. So it has come for 1484 times in my very big data set, right? So this is what we are creating here. Now the next thing is we are creating a probability dictionary too, where the again key would be the unique word from my data set, but the value would now be the probability, right? And you can see here how I'm trying to calculate the probability. The probability is the number of times one word has come in the big data set upon total numbers. Sorry, uh, total number of words that we have in our data set. Right? You can see here I've taken M as sum of word count dictionary dot values. So what is happening here is that we are getting the sum of all the words which have occurred or n number of times in my data set, and then I'm taking the sum of that, storing that in M. So this is basically what this basically means is that you're getting the probability through number of time one word has occurred upon number of time all the words have occurred, the sum of number of time all the words have occurred, right? So this is that, and I have kept the value 0 because if I am encountering a new word by some means later down the line, then at least this won't get me an error that this word is not inside my dictionary, right? So you can just put that as 0. Then the probability will become 0 because in my data set when I was training, I didn't get this word. So I have stored that in probs, right? Now we come to the second part, and this is the most important part because we are going to extensively use our word dictionary and the probability dictionary, right? And the main thing here would be the string manipulations and what exactly are we trying to achieve through string manipulation, right? So I'm going to cover that up in the second video. Hi guys, so this is the second part, right? And I left off talking about string manipulations and why this would be very important for our project. So we are going to create 4 functions, right? And they would help us in a systematic string manipulation that would take in a word and perform different functions on it, right? it could be replacing a character from my word, it could be deleting, it could be inserting, it could be switching, right? So through these functionalities, we would try to create words from our incorrect word to see if we are able to get the correct word or not, right? Now, the first function that we are going to create is the delete letter. So I'm taking my parameter, the first parameter is word, then the first, okay, so the second parameter is verbose, which could be true or false. That is just to print out, okay? So you create two list, and in the split list, what you're doing is you're creating a list of words where you have split the words on the 0th index, on the first index, on the second index, and on the third index, right? And so on till n minus 1th index, right? So that is the thing happening here. Then in the delete a list, what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to remove, okay, what is happening here is that going through the example, let's say I've inserted the word cans here. So this is again a word already in the dictionary in the English language. But let's say I actually wanted to write can, or I actually wanted to write answer. So split L list will have splitting on 0th index, on first index, on second index, on third index, right? For the length 4. So we have n minus 1th till n minus 1th index we are splitting. Then in the delete L list, you can see here that I have removed the first element of my word. Then here, what I've done is I've removed the first element of my word and inserted the C here. So from this word, ants, I'm removing A and I'm connecting C. So I'm getting CNS. Then from here, I'm removing N and I'm connecting CA. So I'm getting CAS. From here, I'm removing S and I'm connecting CAN. So I'm getting CAN, right? So this is how we're trying to delete a specific element from my word and see if the new word that I've got is actually a word from the English dictionary or not, right? So this is what we are trying to do here, and this is the delete letter function. Then moving on to my switch letter, right? So switch letter is the next function, again takes in the two parameters word and verbose. Now when given a word, switch letter will return all the possible strings that have two adjacent letters switched. So basically, if we go by the above example of cans, what is going to happen here? Okay, yeah, let me just go. Okay, it's better to show you from the new example. So the thing happening here is that we're going to switch two alphabets from my word. So if we switch the first two, I would get T. If I switch the second and third one, I would get EAT, eat, right? So even here you can see that in my switch L list, I'm getting T and eat. So what is happening here exactly? So we have created a swap function which would swap the adjacent keys, sorry, not keys, but uh, alphabets, right? So, okay, right. So this is what is happening here. And then I'm calling then I have my split L and my switch L. So I'm taking for the range I in 0 to length minus 1. I'm taking the word from the 0th index to my ith index. So I'm creating a tuple, right, of 0th index to ith index, then from ith index to the n minus 1th index, right? Then I'm dividing the word into two parts and switching them up here. So here you can see that, okay, here. Okay, so this is basically helping me in switching, and you can even use the function created here for switching. That is not an issue. And then you can see that for ETA, we have splits as empty string and ETA, E, then TA, ET, and A. And then I'm trying to switch them up. So with the help of that, I'm able to get the T and E words. So you can see that if I had written this incorrectly, I would get some corrections in my spelling, and you can maybe see that I actually wanted to write eat, but I incidentally wrote ETA, right? So it would correct that. Then the next function is the replace function, right? Now replace function has having a lot of smaller functions working under it. So basically, when given a word, a replace letter will return all the possible strings that have one character replaced by another different character. So basically, you can see that I've taken the letters as my A to Z letters as alphabets. Then again, I split in the same manner as I did above, right here. And the thing is, now I'm replacing the now I'm replacing each and every character by this. So let's say that I have three characters in my string, which is ETA. So first I would remove E and insert through A to Z. So I would get 26 different words. Then I would keep E, remove T, and then again insert A to Z. So I would again get new, 23 new word. Similarly, for the last letter, that would be A in my ETA. So for three letters, three characters, I got 3 into 26 new words to see from if these are the words that you want to have, right? So this is what is happening through split L. Then I'm through replace L, I'm getting those new lists, right? And then you can see here that the word was can, right? Then in the split L I got the splitting here done. Then in the replace L you can see that how many words are actually in my replace L here, right? A lot of them are here. So what I'm doing is that there going to be repetition here also. So to remove that, I'm implicitly converting it into a set, right? Then again I'm just again implicitly setting it as list and sorting it out. Then the last function is the insert letter function, again taking two parameters word and the verbose, which is set to false as default. Now when given a word, it returns all the possible strings that have an additional character inserted, right? So again, I've taken the letters here, but the thing is, we are not replacing anything. We're just inserting them out onto each and every index of my original word. So here you can see that if I have taken the word at, then it has inserted A in the 0th index, then B, then C. It goes till Z, then it would come back and starts from this first index, that would be A, then it would if we move forward, yeah. Here you can see that in the first index now it has inserted A, then in the first index it had inserted B, then C, and so on, right? So that is what insert letter is doing. Now we have created these four functions, and now we are going to use these four functions directly into another function so that they perform all of these functions simultaneously and get me the new created words, and through those words I would select some of them on the basis of probability, which I would go on later to explain what exactly are we how exactly are we going to filter through probability, right? So you can see that I have created an edit one letter, right? So basically, in your word, either I can replace one character, or I can insert one character, or I can delete one character, or I can switch one character up, right? So, but only one character is going to be, I would say, manipulated. So for that, I've just created an empty set, and in empty set update, again, this is a set function. I have taken the delete, and if allow switches, this is just a cool way to tell you that if you want to switch or replace or insert things up, right? So that is that. But then in this, I would again use the update function to get the words I would get returned from switch letter to be inserted into my set. And I've taken this as set and not list because I want to have unique words, because in deleting, switching, replacing, inserting, a lot of repetitive words would be created, right? So I'm taking this. So this is just a wrapper function of kind where we're calling different functions that we have created and taking the results and I would say inserting them into the set we have created and just returning the set. So what I have done is that uh, also created two letter edits where you can insert two letters, delete two letters, switch or replace two letters, right? So this was for just one word, this is for two, where I'm running the edit one letter two times and getting all the values, then again updating using the update function to insert the new created words into my set and returning them. Now, if I run the edit two letters on the word propose, you can see that how many words were how many words were created, and most of them are not even actual words you would see in the dictionary. So how do you filter that? We would come on to that in the in the next code block. But you can see that there's here it replaced O with G, right? Here it also replaced O with G. So the two edit. Then we had NG added onto propose. Then we had R and P switched up and stuff like that, right? So this is what is happening here. Now, this is the last function that we have created, that is get correction. And in get correction, we insert the word, incorrect word, the probability dictionary, the vocabulary. So again, it runs the edit to letter to get all the new words that were created. But the other thing that it does is that it searches for the words that were created through edit two letters and looks in the probability function to get its probability, right? Since we have already created that. So what happens here is that in my suggestions, all of these words which might have meaning, might not have meaning, are present, and through them, I go to each and every one of them and see if this word is actually in my probability dictionary. If it is, then get me the probability here. And if it is not, then set the probability as -1. Then what I'm doing, then I'm just reversing these, getting the probabilities here, and through those probabilities I would check that, yeah, the word this word has more probability for it, then this means that this might be a better suggestion, right? So this is how we are trying to filter that out. Now if you see the get corrections, i, I again have my word propose here, and here you can see that the thing that we return is the word that should be and the probability for that. And you can see that the first word is prose. Maybe you wanted to write prose, not propose. Then the probability for that is very small, but yeah. Then we have proposal. Maybe you wanted to write proposal, so the probability is this. So this is greater than this. So I would say that maybe you actually wanted to write proposal. Then you get all the probabilities here. And for the probabilities which are zero, right, it means that this word actually didn't have any probability in your probability dictionary, meaning this word was not in your probability dictionary itself. Okay, so that is how we have created our correct spellings model. And this is the last thing where I'm importing pickle. So pickle is a package used to store your objects or data in a concise manner, right? So you use the dumps function or dump function and giving the parameter of the object, then where you want to save it, right? So this is the first part which we have completed. So our model is ready now. So we would jump into the next part, that is creating our website through the Django framework. Hi guys. So in this video, we're going to start with our Django implementation, right? Where we will be building a website using the Django framework. So let's first understand what Django is. Now, Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python. Now, a framework is nothing more than a collection of modules that makes development easier. They are grouped, I would say they are a group of different functionalities assimilated together, which allows you to create applications or websites from an existing code source instead of from scratch. So this is how websites, even simple ones designed by a single person, can still include advanced functionalities like authentication support, management, admin panels, contact forms, file upload system, and more. So in other words, if you were to create a website, right, you would need to create these components which I just mentioned from scratch. So by using the framework instead, these components are already built. You just need to configure them properly to match to your site. So what you do is basically just use the classes or maybe the functions that they provide and configure those functions in a way which you want them to work as. Now, Django has a model template views architectural system that keeps in mind the requirements of front-end and database management for a developer. We will see what this architecture means and how it makes things easier for a developer in the next video. Now, moving forward, let's first see how we can instantiate a Django project, right? Now, I have a file that is the steps file. Now, I've specified some steps which includes both the cases where you might want to create a new Django project or you might want to just configure the existing Django project which I have shown here, right? Since I would be providing this code. So yeah, now the first thing you have to do for both the cases, let me go case by case. Let's say that you were to create a new project, right? You don't want to use this existing code base. Then the first thing to do is create a virtual environment, right? So if you have a PyCharm ID, then you can just click on file here, then click on settings and a pop-up opens. And in this settings, go to the project, then project interpreter, and click on the settings button here, click on add. Then it would show you that if you want to create a new environment, where should it store that environment, the location, then the interpreter, which one do you want? I'm using the Python 3.7.6, right? So you can just, there's a OK button here, just click on OK. But since PyCharm has already understood that, see, there's an environment location directory which is not empty. So there's something already present here. So you can't make a new environment there, right? So it's not letting me make one. But for you, it would be empty, so you can make one, right? Now, once you have created your virtual environment, let's say if you are working on VS Code, so you can just use the virtual VNV and activate your virtual environment then. Then the next thing to do is install Django and the version for that. Now, to install that, you would need to write pip install Django and the version. Okay, so I'm currently using the 3.2 version, but if you want to use an updated version or a regressive version, then you can go for that. But once you have done that, then the next thing to do is run the command python admin start project, then the name of your project. Now I've named my project my site. So once you run this command, this particular, the third one, then a my site directory will be created, inside which you would be finding another my site directory, inside which you would be finding all the files which are used for configuring Django. Right, so I would come on to this in the later parts. Then, right, then the next thing to do is pip install all the requirements. Now, if you're creating a new project, you might not have the requirement.txt file. So let it stay as it is. or what you can do is just import the, I would say copy paste the requirement.txt file from my code base to your one, and then run the command in terminal so that you have all the dependencies and packages installed which might be required by you to run this project. Now, once you have done that, the next thing to do is run python manage.py start app. But this command has to be run in the directory where your manage.py file is present. So you can see that I'm inside my site directory here. Only there you can run this command because this is Django specific. And when you run this command, a new app is created. Now the thing is the project and apps are different because the project sees the overall of how the Django application is going to work. It is taking all the files which are required to configure your project. But apps on the other hand are a sub part of your project which is used or which is created to build additional functionalities for your Django project, right? So once you have also done this, then what you have to do is, yeah, you have to run this command python manage.py migrate. Now this again is a Django specific command which helps Django understand that, yeah, you have created some I would say some tables, or Django wants to create some tables so that it is working smoothly, right? So for that we have the migrate function which runs in the manage.py, where whenever you have specified to Django that this is a table I want to create, once you run migrate, it would understand that, yeah, okay, these tables are to be created, and this particular project is going to be using MySQL or Postgres or SQLite 3. So I have to create those tables there. Okay, so this is for that. Now we would be leaving this command for the time being. Okay, so this is for when you were to create a new project. If you want to use the existing code base, what you have to do is again create a virtual environment, right? And directly go here and pip install all the requirements. Again, in the directory where your requirement.txt file is present, right? Then the next thing to do is python manage.py migrate. Run this command in your terminal to instantiate all the tables required, and then you can probably run this command right here to start your local server. Okay, so the thing is, we can see that in our project directory we have configurational files. Okay, configurational files, sorry, where we have the settings.py, asgi, wsgi, right? So moving on to settings.py, you can see that there are a lot of variables created here, right? This debug, secret key, allowed host. Okay, base directory not so important. We have installed app, which is a list. Again, middlewares, root, URL configurations, templates, and stuff like that. You can scroll down and see for yourself. But so this is where we configure our project, that this project is going to connect to maybe some external applications. There might be, how do you want to handle your data, if you want a cache system to be working with your Django project or not, like stuff like that are configured here. So first is the secret key. Now secret key is a particular key you would find with every Django project, and it is unique to each and every Django project. Okay, so you can't, if people have this key, they can do stuff on your code. Okay, so you have to keep this as secret. Again, the name implies, but yeah. Okay, then the next thing is debug. So when you keep this as true, so whenever there's a problem that is coming from your code, it would showcase where the problem is existing, what the problem is, uh, in which particular file it is happening, right? But if you keep that as false, it would just uh, I would say abstract those information and only show that an internal error has occurred. Okay, so you can even see that security warning, don't run the debug turned on in production. Then I have the allowed host. So who, or I would say what particular machines can connect to this Django application and run this Django application, right? So you can see there's a local host, which is when we are in developing mode. Then we have our IP address for the VM, which is the virtual machine. Again, I'm using something here which I will tell you later, right, and why it is important too. Then we have the installed apps. You can see that the we already have some apps pre-built in Django, which are handling the administration part, the authentication part, their sessions, handling sessions, their static files, right? So these are the apps which are already created by Django, and this one was the app that I have created, right? So there's the pre-built functionalities, but if I want to create something that is not provided by Django, I create an app for myself right here. Okay. Then you can see that even the middlewares are somewhat, I would say, handled by Django. So you don't have to even, think about security issues unless you're working on some advanced stuff or you're handling sensitive data given by the user or retrieved from your database and stuff like that. Then we have the templates, right? So templates is basically nothing but anything that is served to a user when he or she hits a particular URL. So when you go to google.com, you can see the Google page, right? So that page is what we are calling templates here. Okay, so that is that. And yeah, you can see that there is a variable for database too, right? We have a local variable for database too, and here it is here where we configure how or which application is to be used with Django, what are the usernames or maybe the password, right? So all of that is set here. But since we are using the SQLite 3, which comes together with Django, we don't have to set anything here. Then we have the cache system too. So I'm using the local mem cache. Okay, and with the help of cache system we can store values, we can store objects, so that we don't have to load them again and again. We can just call them from the cache, which makes your site faster, right? So these were some of the variables that you need to know about if you properly want to configure and work with Django applications. Okay, now coming back to this thing, what is os.environment.get, right? So, as I told you, anything that you think is sensitive data on your code, what you can do is you can create a .env file right here and store that value here. Now, my sensitive data, which is not so sensitive now, but is stored here, okay? And you call these values here using the os.environment function, which is basically a dictionary. So you get the keys, right? You use the function get and name the key so that the value is stored here in the secret key. Okay, so this is what is happening here, and why it is important. So because let's say that somebody is able to access your code, he or she still won't be able to get the secret key, right? Now you might be thinking that if somebody has the access to code, he would or she would have the access to .env file too, right? But the thing is, once you run the code for the first time, env variables, whatever you have created here, all of that data gets stored in your system variables, okay, as system variables, okay, in your system. So the next time you run your code, this os.environment will take the data from the system variables rather than from the .env file. So you can just delete this, okay? So now if somebody has the access to your code, he or she would still not be able to get the key. But if they are able to get into your system and take the variables, then yeah, at that point they would be able to. But still, that's pretty hard to do, right? Rather than keeping things here, it's better to have a have a env file created where your sensitive data is present. And you can see that I'm using a function load.env from the .env package, which handles the system variable data. So with this, we have also completed how we can configure, what things to take care about while configuring, right? So in the next part, which would be the next video, we would be talking about the model views template architectural system, right? And how exactly the Django application is working and the website is created, and with the help of the last function that we saw here, which is python manager.py run server, with this command we would see if our site is running properly or not. Hi guys, so I left off with explaining how can we configure our Django project right? Using the settings.py files and the variables that are set up in it. So I'm going to start to explain what exactly is our models, views, template architectural system, right? I think this is what I thought of to talk about in this video. So models and templates are basically Django jargon for database and front end, right? If I have to explain it in a very uh, over overview, give a very overview of it, then uh, when we talk about models in Django, we're trying to create tables, we're trying to update tables which would store data, right, from our for our website from the front end or retrieve data from to the back end, right? So that is what model signifies in Django. And template signifies the pages that would be served to the user when he hits a particular URL. So as you can see, I have my app here, and in my app there are certain files present, and then you can see there's a templates, right? There's a templates folder here, and inside that I have an HTML file with me. So what I've done is that I've created an HTML file that would be the front end for my website and would be served to the user when he hits or when she hits a particular URL. And in this front end, or I would say in this HTML, I have just created a form which takes in my data. Now, once the user has input the data here, then all he or she would do is click on submit, and then that data would be sent from the front end to my back end, right? So views.py handles all the backend implementations for particular apps. This is where you write your code to create functionalities that you want on your website. So how do we move forward with this? Now we have a handler function, right? You can see there's a handler function here which is taking a request parameter, and yeah, and as you can see, it has a return, and it is returning the output of a render function, right? So when you create a function, right, in Django, and it is taking request parameter, it must mean that this function is responsible for handling, for serving a particular front end part, right? And that front end part, as you can see here, is specified here in the uh, second parameter, that's an index.html. So what happens is that you call out this function. This function understands that I have been called, and then it returns our output of the render function, and you give the parameters as request, then the page that you want to serve or that this handler function will handle, and lastly the context, which is any information that you want to send from your backend to your front end so that the viewer can see that, right? So this is how a particular function is mapped with a particular part at the front end. So whenever a user goes to a particular URL, this function will work. It would render the HTML page, and the user will be able to see that HTML page, right? Then if he submits the data, that data would come here. Then that data would be processed here. We would get some results. Then we would send that results back through the context part right here. Okay, that is a dictionary. So you send your result as dictionaries. Okay. Now you can also see that I have get corrections functions from my previous part, right, where we were using this function to get the predictions, not exactly predictions, but words that might be the correct spelled words, right, for our incorrect spelled word. Okay, so you might be thinking that, yeah, this function has been made, yeah, there's a render, yeah, we have mapped a function to our particular front-end part, we are sending, receiving data, but nowhere have I called this particular data, right? In the code, you can see that there's no call to handler function. So the thing is, Django provides you with the urls.py, okay, where you write the path and the function which Django has to call. Basically, This is where you map on which URL which function has to be called. So what happens is that here you understand that at path something something slash home, we would run handler function. Then in views, handler function is called. It understands, okay, so I have to render the HTML page. So it renders the HTML page and the user is able to see the page. So this is how the views and template system is working. What happens is that usually when we process things inside the handler function, we usually save our data, we retrieve our data, we manipulate our data. So all of that happens inside your handler functions. Okay, and that is how we get the views model template or model template views architectural system. So for now, we are not using the models part, and that is because I'm not saving the data anywhere. It's just to get the input and showcase the output to the user. Right now, you can see that it is taking probs and vocab as parameters, right, as it should. So you can see that I have a dot sustain, right, dot sustain py file which holds the vocab and probs. So let's move forward to there. Okay, another thing, you can see that from the string manipulation file, I am getting my edit two letters. So all of the functions that we created, right, the delete letter, switch letter, replace letters, and my insert letter, all of them are in the strings manipulation file, and I've directly what I've done is again just specified the edit two letters, calling them out, and then just importing the last, that is edit two letters function, and using that directly here. Okay, now talking about sustain.py, this is just a file name, but the important part here is that we are caching our vocabulary and probability dictionary here. What does this mean? So what happens is that if you refresh your page, let's say that the index.html page is refreshed, then the handler function will be called again. So if you refresh three times, it would be handler function will be called three times. So let's say that here, right here, a file was being loaded. Okay, so a file was being loaded, then what happens is that this file will be loaded again and again. So this takes time, and then each refresh will take a lot of time for you. But what happens is that if I create a cache system which Django provides already, again, you don't have to write code from scratch. If you create cache system and load these probability and vocabulary dictionaries or sets or any container into the cache, so on the first time the website would take some time to load, but after that each time you refresh, these would already be loaded into the cache, so they would be directly called from cache. They won't be loaded again and again, so your refresh speed would increase. Okay, and that is very important. Might not be important right now because these are small files, but if you're importing or loading deep learning models of 200, 300, 400 MBs, then this makes a lot more sense than just loading them again and again. So this is why I have created a cache system which is storing the vocabulary for me and the probability dictionary for me, right? So this is how exactly Django is working. And coming to the final part, let's run the application itself. So you write the command python manage.py run server. Okay, just click enter, and then it is going to check if your code is properly configured or not, right? Performing system checks. And once it has seen that yeah, your code is fine and good, then it would provide you that Django version 3.2 or whatever version you're using, starting development server at your local host URL. So this is a local host URL, and when we had the path here, right? So this path is appended here. So we would get HTTP 127.0.0.1 colon 8000 slash home slash, right? And when we go on to that link, right, when we go on to that link, you would see the page. Right now, since we have not specified any function to be run on this URL, that's why we are getting a page not found. But when we go to the home, you can see the page was loaded, right? Now you can just input your text here. Okay, you can just input your text here, right? And you can just click on submit and see. So you're getting your keyword. Okay, why it's this keywords? Okay, I don't know why this exactly is keywords, but basically you're getting your words right here, and you're also getting the probability for each of them, right? You can see that the probability for ruse is okay, it's pretty small as compared to propose, which is again the same word only. Then we have purpose, which again has quite a big probability in comparison to others, I would say. Then we have promote, oppose. Some of the words are not even actual words, right? Not English words. We have repose. So we got that. The thing is, I haven't specified if I want the best 10 words, best 5 words, best 20 words right now, because sometimes what happens is that you might get uh, words like uh, let's say that I wanted to have a sentence like I propose to somebody, right? So then proposed, propose, purpose might be quite similar words to have, but words like oppose or words like okay, promise and stuff like that, these are very out of context words for my sentence, but they might have great bigger probabilities as compared to the words that are actually coming into the context. That's why I haven't removed them out. And if you use different words here, you would be able to see that for let's just propose some, not propose, just create some sentences for yourself, and there just take a word from it and maybe just type in incorrect spelling for that word and see what all words are showcased here. You might see that some of the words which have smaller probabilities would actually fit into your sentence much better as compared to those words which have bigger probabilities right here. Okay, or if you want, you can just run the loop for a certain amount of time, and that would showcase the uh, best 10 words, best 20 words, right? So that is up to you. I've just kept this as it is, right? So this is how we have created and configured our Django project using the Django framework. And now our site is ready. So what we have to do now is just to create our virtual machine and transfer our code and finally host our Django application. Hi guys. So in this video, we are going to start with hosting the website that we created in the last part, right? The Django application that we have created. So if you go to the Azure login and log into your account, you would be you'll be redirected to the dashboard. And inside dashboard, the first thing to do is go to your top left corner and scroll down to virtual machines. Right, scroll down to virtual machines, and in virtual machines, it would give you an option of create. Now see, if I have already created some of the virtual machines right now, and you can see one is stopped, one is running, and it has a public IP address and stuff. So all of the virtual machines that you would create would be showcased here, right? So let's just create one for now. Click on virtual machines, and in virtual machines, once you yeah, okay, not exactly the fastest net, but okay. And then I have, yeah, see, uh, Azure actually gives you a free trial for 12 months, right? And it also provides you with some credit that you can use on applications or resources that do not come under the free trial. Okay, so but for our project, I think free trial version and the VMs and the resources they provide are quite enough. So just click on the let it be the free trial subscription. But if you don't want to have that, you can just create another one or you can use another one. Then in the resource group part, let it be new. Let it create a new resource group for a new virtual machine. Then just type in the name. Yeah, okay. So just type in your virtual machine name, the region where you want it to be, then the availability options. Again, you can skip this part if you think that this is not much important, because availability zone just is like physically separate your resources within Azure region. Now, if you want to have clutter-free resources, you might want to use this, else it's okay. Security type, keep it as standard. Now we come on to images, right? Okay, so before moving forward, let me, give you some of the features virtual machines in Azure have, and then let me talk about some of the topics or some of the things that you might be seeing in this video or in the next video, like stuff like images. What exactly is images? What are subnets? What are VPCs, right? So the thing is, VMs provide you with following features like pre-configured templates for your instances known as machine images. So this image is actually a machine image that has like that has packaged the bits you need for your servers to host or to work with the server. Basically, machine images provides operating systems, additional software that you might require when you have set up the virtual machine and want to use it for, let's say for our purpose, like hosting a website, right? So this is what image means. And you can see that I have Ubuntu server 20.04 LTS, and this comes under the free service eligibility. Then you can see that it also provides 18.04, where this is also in free service. Then I have Red Hat, Oracle, Debian. I also have Windows 10 Pro too. Yeah, this is gonna take a lot of money, but yeah, you can see that some of them are free versions, but some of them are not. So it obviously depends on the user. If he's comfortable with uh, Windows, then yeah, go for with that. If you're you have some knowledge about Ubuntu, what commands to run, you can go for with Ubuntu. But even if you don't have much knowledge about the commands to run, what exactly, how do we set up things in Ubuntu, I would be providing the information in the next video, so that's not a problem. Then the next thing is, yeah, the size. So this is the disk size, right? And okay, not exactly the disk size. This is uh, the size provided by the VM, right? There's a separate disk, then there's RAM and VPC, and we have one vCPU for the standard B1S and 1 gig of memory. You can see that this is again in free uh, service eligible. But if I go to all sizes, right? If I go to all sizes, then you can see there, okay, it's based on the most used by Azure users. You can see most of them are general purpose ones, and you can see that there's DS1, V2, DS2S, V3. You can see they have different vCPUs, a different number of vCPUs. The RAM is different. Okay, it comes with 0.52, and data disk is okay. Yeah, so see, there are two things: data disk and disk space, which I would showcase in the next part once we clear this up. Then the temporary storage, max IOPS supports, whatever, right? So the most important thing to look for is vCPU, RAM, and data disk. Okay, so select this one, B1S. Let it be B1S standard. Then the next thing is the authentication type, right? So you need to have the SSH public key rather than the password, because it's pretty much easy and reliable when we use SSH public keys or SSH keys to log in into our server through our local machine. Now, you can keep the username whatever you want. I've just kept that as Azure user, and by default also, I think it stays as Azure user. And whatever you have kept it, do remember it because we're going to use this. The next thing is SSH public key source. So it gives you an option of generate new key, use existing key, or use existing key stored in Azure. So you go for generate new key, right? And this key is also very important. So there's a pop-up where you need to save this key onto your local machine. So do save it and do remember it where you have saved it. Then just name the key pair. So the file that is going to be down, like the pop-up that is going to be shown here to download the key pair, it would have some name, right? So just keep that, write that here. Then we have, okay, let it stay as it is. This is pretty important because if we don't have this, you won't be able to log in onto your, I would say, virtual machine through your local machine. Next is disks. Okay, so we have the OS disk type, let it be premium SSD only. And yeah, let it be as it is. But let's say that you have already created a VM which is already using an existing disk and you want to just attach that particular disk to this new VM. So you can just click here, or yeah, you can do that here. But again, this is pretty much not required usually, right? So as I talked about, VMs also provide you with secure login informations using key pairs, which we went through just now, right? It might not have been clear what exactly are we going to download, how it looks like, what exactly it's important, but that would be covered in this video only, or most probably in the next video. Then we also saw the temporary storage volumes that they provide, right? Again, a feature that they provide. They have data disk, they have uh, different disk storage also. Then they have persistent storage volumes for your data. They have enabled a firewall too, and you can specify the protocols, ports, and source IP ranges that can reach your instance using security groups. Again, this is something really important because we would be revisiting this so that we are correctly configuring the VM so that it connects to our Django application and hosts the website. Okay, then moving forward to networking. Then in networking, yeah, so either you can use a pre-made virtual network or you can just make a new one. Let it make a new one. Uh, Usually, if you don't want to have things cluttered, you usually use a pre-built one that you've already built. But for people who have just started into hosting, I would prefer that they create new ones with each new VM that they prepare, because sometimes there are conflicts when a lot of VMs are using particular VNet or subnets. Anyways, moving forward, nothing to be changed here. Okay, then click on management. Again, this is advanced stuff. You can go and click on review and create after networking only. So this again management, nothing to be done here. Then I have advanced. Again, if you want to go forward with this, good. If you're not, then you can directly go to review and create. Then we have tags. Now in tags, let's say that you have two VMs which are hosting Django applications, two VMs which are hosting Java applications, one VM which is hosting a machine learning model, right? So in tags, what you can do is you can create a tag and tag those VMs, like the two which were you hosting Django applications. You can tag them and name the tag as Django applications or Java applications, machine learning model loaded, something like that, right? So it just creates a kind of, I would say, group where where VMs are grouped on the basis of tags. Then lastly on review and create. So here all the summary of whatever you have chosen would be shown. right? You can even see here the subscription. We have the source group. New one is being created. Virtual machine region where it is. The virtual machine is. Now this might take a little time. Depends on people to people and their networks, how fast they are. And yeah, so we have that. Okay, sometimes it gives this thing that unable to retrieve prices in legal terms. Basically, it provides you with a list of legal terms right here, which you can, click on learn more and go through them. Then it also showcases the price by per hour. Usually it's 0.8 rupees per hour, I think, and that is how much it would take usually. Anyways, uh, yeah. Then the thing is, you click on create, right? You click on create, and a pop-up would be open where it would ask you to download private key and create resource, right? You have to do that, and once you click on that, it would and give you another pop-up where you have to save that file. So please save that file in a place where you remember, because without that file, you won't be able to log in into your uh, virtual machine through your local machine, or even through your AWS, Azure console, right? So I've already created one, so I won't be creating a virtual machine right now. Okay, but this was the process. So once you have created, it would show you something like, uh, okay, see, this is the credit they provide you, right? This is the credit they provide you. And if you go into the log, validate feature, validate operation time, validate. Yeah, see, okay, it is not showing right here, but the thing is, once you click and save your file and stuff, then in your virtual machines, it shows that your virtual machine is in deployment right now, which means that they are creating the new resources group and connecting that to the VM. Then it would give that to you, right? Then once it has been deployed, it would give you a message here, and you can see that it would be showing the status as running. Okay, so once that has been done, you would also see that a public IP address is generated. But you can see that for stopped VM, I had another VM which I have stopped. It is not showing any public IP addresses, right? So keep that in mind, because sometimes we do need to change things in the code while handling public addresses. Okay. Okay, so this is that. Now let's move forward to some of the terms that you might be again uh, maybe chancing upon them, right? So the first is the public DNS, which again we talked about. Now, DNS is domain name system, which is a standard by which names are used on the internet and are resolved to their corresponding IP addresses. Which basically means that, let's say Google is hosted on a particular server, and you write on your browser www.google.com. So what happens is that uh, on the browser, it understands that this google.com is actually mapped to a particular IP address. Then the browser understands that, oh, I have to hit this IP address so that I can get the information user wants. So it hits the IP address and asks for the information. Then the server, which that IP address corresponds to, sends the information back to the browser, and then the browser showcases the Google page to you. So this is exactly how things are working, and this is why IP addresses are important to know about what exactly they are doing, right? Okay, yeah. So the next thing is talking about inbound and outbound rules. Now, security group acts as a virtual firewall for your Azure instance to control incoming and outgoing traffic. Now, inbound rules control the incoming traffic for your instance, and outbound rules control the outgoing traffic for your instance. Again, this might not have been a really clear cut explanation of what these are. So basically, when we talk about inbound, they mean incoming connections to your Azure instance. Basically, somebody is trying to connect to your instance, right? And then outbound means that your Azure instance is trying to connect to somebody over the internet, right? So you can specify rules as to who exactly can connect to your instance and who exactly your instance can be connected to whom. So you can specify those rules so that only specific people are able to access your uh, okay, I think something happened in internally. Okay, let me just, yeah, let it stay as it is. But the thing is, yeah, coming back to the outgoing connections. So we are trying to set up rules that our server would only be able to access this in over the internet. So these are the inbound and outbound rules. Okay. Now moving forward, let's go to the resource group right here. So just click on that, right? And then it will redirect you to the resources that have been connected with your VM. In that, see the type where it is network security group. Click on that, and it would, yeah, it would show you the network security group, right? Now the thing is, we got our inbound rules and we got our outbound security rules, right? So we have to set them up in a way so that even Django is able to connect to your application or virtual machine, actually virtual machine. Then to do that, click on inbound security rules and click on add. Then let the source be any port range, source port ranges has to be any, destination has to be any, service has to be custom. Now just set this up to 8000 because Django by default works on 8000 port. The protocol is actually TCP protocol, right? Then give the priority as whatever you want. Name the port whatever you want, write in any description like uh, setting up the connections to my VM from Django, right? And just type in anything and just click on add here, right? I would be clicking on cancel. That is because I've already created one right here for me. See, so this is how exactly it would be showcased to you. Then once you have done this, you can go back to your virtual machines again, right? In your virtual machines right now, uh, you would have a public IP address, right? So I have a particular one, but when you would be working on it, you would have a particular IP address which would be different from mine. So in the code, you would have to make the changes before you actually deploy your code, or basically transfer your code from local machine to your, I would say, to the VM. Now, how exactly we're going to do that? Again, I'm going to show you in the next video. But before ending this one, I'm going to tell you about some of the software that are required by the that are required by you to be installed so that the process of transferring file, the process of setting up the server becomes smooth. Okay, the first is Putty, right? You can just go to PuttyGen. Then there's a link for downloading Putty. We have the Windows version, right? Then the next application is Putty. So the next application you can see here is Putty. So again, the download link is here. It is a free SSH and Telnet client for Windows. Then we have done with PuttyGen and Putty. Yeah, the last is WinSCP. Okay, so we have WinSCP right here. We have the download link here. So download the setup for these softwares and install them on your machine because these are the software that we are going to use for deploying our code onto Azure. Yeah, hi guys. So let's start with the actual process where we're gonna host our website on the virtual machine we have just now instantiated. So the first thing is to get your putty puttygen software so that we are able to create a private key. Okay. So once this opens, keep the key to generate as the RSA type. Click on load. Then go to the directory wherever you have stored your file and then just click it as all files, so it is also showing you the PEM file. Okay, since what we downloaded was the PEM file only, so open this, click on OK, then you have to click on save private key, then click on OK, then just name it whatever you want. Now you can see that I've already created one for myself which is named as correct spelling. So you can just name it as anything that you want. It would be saved as a PPK file, private key, uh, sorry, putty private key. Yeah, private key, right? Then save. I would be canceling this because I've already generated one. No point in generating a new one. But for you, you have to click on OK then, right? So you have just now created a private key from the key that was generated by Azure. Now, this private key will kind of act as a password whenever you're trying to, I would say, whenever you're trying to log in into the VM through your local machine. So once you have created the private key, then we have the next software, which is Putty. Open this. Then you would have the host name. Now the host name is 52.172.235.81. Right. It should be on port 22 only because we have told the VM that on port 22 SSH connections would be created or would be established. Then go to SSH, click on auth. Here it's asking for private key, right, for authentication. Click on browse. Browse into the directory wherever you have saved your PPK file. Select that. Click on open. Click on open. Then log in as what? I asked you to remember the username, right, when we were creating the VM. So that username is to be specified here, right? So login as Azure users. Yeah. So I've SSH'd into my VM or I've logged in into my VM. You can see that 7.6% of the 28.9 GB is being used. There are 104 processors currently working and 28 percent of memory is being used right now. So I'm going to tell you some of the commands that you should know whenever you're working on Ubuntu OS because it makes things easier for you, and even going forward to set up the code, it would be better if you know all of these. Okay, so the first is the ls-a. So this is to list out all the files and subdirectories that a particular directory has. Right, so you can see that dot bash history, dot bash logout files, dot cache, the sudo admin successful file, dot ssh file. Then there's the my site folder too. These are folders in blue, right? Then then I have the okay. Then I have the pwd command. It is telling you on to which directory and what is the I would say what is the path of the directory. Then I have the sudo command, as even you can see here. Now, sudo command is to have administrator right. Basically, any command preceded by sudo is run as an administrative command, and with that, you have the full rights and access to anything on your machine. Okay, so that is that. And let me now show you how to transfer your files from your local machine to your VM. Okay, so for that, you need to run the winscp. Okay, so click on winscp. and then yeah, so okay, yeah. So my my laptop is kind of slow, but the thing is they provide you with the how would you like to log in? Would you like to log in as a whatever credentials you have saved before, or you're working with a new VM? So just click on new site, or you might have only been shown the new site only. Again, type in the host name, whatever. Okay, so I can't access the host name right now, so I'll just have to copy it, copy it, then my recipe, yeah, just paste it here. The port should be 22 only. Username is Azure user. Then again in password, click on advanced. Then going through advanced, click on authentication here. Then browse the private key file you just created using Putigen. Select that file, click on open, click on OK, click on login. Yeah, so once it has authenticated the key, it will log in. Now on the left side you have your local machine, on the right side you have your VM. Also gives you for how long you have been logged into it. Then the most cool thing about this is that you can just select and drop here, right? So you can just select any file, drop it here, and it would transfer. Let's say that I have to delete something, I can just click here, uh, use the button delete, and then click OK. So it would delete all the files, and see it has deleted. I can just click on, sorry, draw, drag and drop here, click on OK. It would, yeah, it might take a little time. Yeah, so see, you were able to transfer your files from your local machine to your VM. So you can even go through different directories. You can go to code, you can go to correct spelling, you can go to data set, you can come back here, right? Or even here you can go inside here. You can even change if you want to say I have to change something here. It should be 4.2. You can do that, right? Yeah, no, I don't want to say anything, but yeah, you can do stuff like this, right? Now coming back to your sorry, command line, you can even see here that once you have done this and again run the command ls-a, you would see the my site directory would be specified here, right? We all know the cd command, right? To go inside a particular directory, we can do that. Then let's say that I have to make some changes through here, not through the WinSCP. So for that, you can run the command nano, which opens up editor, right? So what you can do is, yeah, okay. Let's say that you have to change your public IP address because it has been changed again because you stopped and restart your server. Okay, so what you can do is go into cd my site, then look for the env file, right? I have the env file here. So type in nano, that is your command, .env, right? So if you want to change, you can just change it here, right? You can just change it here. So once you change, it would say, do you want to save the modified buffer? Type Y. Then it would ask if you want to save the file name as .env only. Enter, and you have made changes. Right. So these are some of the basic commands that you should know about. Then coming to other kinds of commands, like if you want to see the free and used memory of your system, then you can type in this. So you can see that the total memory given was 909 MB. I have used 195, or I am currently using this. Free is this, available is this. Okay. And then about the swap ones. If you want to see the disk space, so you can type in the command df-h, then you have 29 GB of which 2.3 has been used, which is 8%. Then for other temporary stuffs, right? Okay. So these are some of the commands that you can use to set up things on your VM, right? But the main thing to look for is there's a particular command to install and update, or either update your pip file, because by default Python is already installed. I think, yeah. You can see Python 3.8.10 has been installed. It comes pre-installed, but still you have to install pip. So what I've done is I've just created a notepad onto which I've created a number of steps to go forward with whenever you are setting up your server. Okay, so this is the command that you need to have, which I've just now copied. So you just run this command, and once you run this command, it would either update or install the pip for you. Now I won't be doing that because I already did, so it won't give me anything. It would just tell me that yeah, you have already installed and there's nothing to update. Okay, so you need to run this command right here. Okay, so once you have run this command, your pip has been installed. Now you can install all the dependencies that your code requires, right? And you know the dependencies is inside the requirements.txt. So the next thing you do is write the command pip install r requirements.txt. So you click on this, and again it would tell me that you have already installed or the requirement is already satisfied and stuff. But for you, it would showcase a lot of packages being installed. Now, while you are updating pip, if it was not updating but installing, then there would be a pop-up where it would be asking you to say yes or no. So just say yes, because it is asking for some permissions to add on some files for pip. Okay, so I kind of missed that, but yeah, that happens. And then we can move forward with and say that yeah, our requirements are also completely installed. Then we can move forward and type in python 3 manage.py migrate. Okay, that would, okay, it's telling me no migrations to apply. This is because we haven't made any new changes to the models, right? We haven't worked with models, so there's no changes to be administered right here. So this has also been created, oh sorry, completed. Then the last command is python 3 manage.py run server, running on 8000 port. So once you run this, uh, system check has been performed and it has started your server. So you can, what you can do is just go back, copy this, right? Go to your URL, paste it, type in the 8000 port slash home, right? Now you can see your site has been hosted. So let's just check if it is working properly or not. Let's type in purpose, right? Click on submit. Yeah. Oh, I think I've made changes in the deployed one, but you can see that there's a propose, which is again the same word only. There's suppose, right? Okay, it's even showing purple. Anyways, you can see that the words have been, sent. Even if I write purpose and leave the e, it would, okay, it's showing me purport now, purpose, right? Parlos, okay, what is parlos? Purple, yeah. So you can see that we wrote the incorrect one and we got the uh, correct spellings, or particular words which have correct spellings, and you could have meant any one of those, right, with the probabilities of them. So with this, we have completed our last part two, which was hosting our Django application, and we can now say that we have completed our project.